Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for today's meetup. On today's agenda, Chris and Allison will be providing an overview of the mosquito control maps and apps that are available. And just as a reminder, we'll be recording and posting this recording on meetups.com shortly after the presentation. And during the meetup, if you'd like to make comments or chat with other participants, then feel free to use the chat pod. However, if you'd like to submit a question to the team for us to answer, then please submit your question through the Q&A pod. With that said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Chris.
Thanks, Heather. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. So thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Chris Fox, and joining me as well as Allison Muse, and we are going to take some time to give you an overview of the maps and apps designed to help mosquito control agencies manage mosquito populations and the spread of vector-borne diseases. So a little bit of background of why this is important. I would say mosquitoes are universally regarded as a nuisance. I can't say that I know very many people who enjoy mosquitoes or the irritation they cause when they bite. More seriously, though, there are several species of mosquitoes that are capable of carrying vector-borne diseases and can transmit these diseases from host to host when they bite. So mosquitoes have received increased attention this year with the spread of the Zika virus and its link to birth defects. Zika is one of several vector-borne diseases that are transmitted from mosquitoes to humans and also include things like malaria, dengue fever, West Nile, and many other forms of encephalitis. Although Zika has brought more attention to the importance of mosquito control agencies have been working diligently in their communities for years to reduce the number of mosquitoes that are flying around and biting people and limiting the spread of these diseases. I know many people in the meeting today who are actively involved in mosquito control already understand the importance of the work that they're doing, but I think it's important to reiterate for those who may not be familiar or understand the type of work that mosquito control is doing, is that it's critical in improving the quality of life in the community and preventing the spread of many diseases. So mosquito control accomplishes this through several activities. First, to manage the number of adult mosquitoes that are flying around and biting, they will spray a pesticide, or more specifically in this context, an adulticide. And this adulticide is sprayed either by hand in a very focused area, through truck-mounted sprayers, or by air from a plane or a helicopter. Next, larviciding involves applying treatment or directly to mosquito breeding sites. This prevents larvae from maturing into adults and dispersing. This is important. I think the way I like to describe it, it was described to me very simply by Broward County, Florida. Mosquitoes who don't fly, don't bite. So we want to try to take care of them before they get to the point where they're flying around and biting people. Mosquitoes need water at 2 stages in their life cycle to mature to adults. So limiting locations of standing water is critical in reducing mosquito populations. This often involves mosquito control educating the community about keeping containers, buckets, old tires, or other sources that collect water clean. And finally, mosquito control also works to educate the community on how to protect themselves from exposure to mosquitoes. Knowing when to stay indoors at the times mosquitoes are most active and what types of repellents to apply can go a long way in preventing the spread of vector-borne diseases. So to assist in these efforts, in June we released the Managed Mosquito Population Solution. This solution is a comprehensive offering of maps and apps that work together to help mosquito control agencies respond to problems reported by the community, manage adulticide and larviciding treatments, conduct mosquito surveillance, and track the spread of vector-borne diseases. Every map and app included in the solution can be configured in ArcGIS Online or on-premise in your WebGIS. No custom coding is required. Everything included is a configuration of Web App Builder widgets or configurable application templates. While the maps and apps are designed to work together, they can also be deployed individually depending on your organization's needs. So although we're going to show a lot of different maps and apps today, it's important to take away that you can always start with one or two and look at and that one or two that look valuable and add more later as needed. We developed these maps and apps in partnership with Broward County and Palm Beach County in Florida, as well as the city of Virginia Beach, Virginia. We started with these organizations because of their history dealing with vector-borne diseases and the size of their mosquito control operations. They were critical in providing us access to their organization, describing their challenges, and how they could leverage GIS in their day-to-day activities. This information helped us form the requirements for the maps and apps we're going to be showing you today. We have also incorporated feedback along the way from other organizations across the country to provide a solution that we believe can provide benefit to all mosquito control agencies regardless of their location. So here are the maps and apps that make up the Managed Mosquito Population Solution. For the rest of the presentation today, we're going to be demonstrating these maps and apps and providing the context for when you should be interested and the value that they could bring to your organization. We're going to be taking a couple breaks along the way to split up some of the maps and apps, and we'll take some time during those breaks to answer some questions. And at the end, I'm going to be doing a quick summary of what we discussed, and I'm going to show you how you can get started with deploying these maps and apps in your organization. So now I'm going to be turning it over to Allison, who's going to be demonstrating the mosquito service request applications.
Good morning, everybody. So as Chris mentioned, we are going to start off with the public-facing side of mosquito control. And we're going to start with this mosquito service request application. This is a configuration of the Crowdsource Reporter web app template that's available in both ArcGIS Online and Portal for ArcGIS. So this is an app that would be used by the general public to report mosquito activity and locations of potential breeding sites. This would be typically provided by a mosquito control agency or even a public works department to supplement typically the phone numbers that are available for people to report those types of issues now. So this is a 24/7 access point for the community to report issues that they may be seeing. So as I mentioned, this is an ArcGIS Online web app template. It works really well on a smartphone. You can see I've resized my browser down to a smartphone-ish size. Also works really well on a tablet or, as I'm going to be demoing today, on a desktop. We have a series of sign-in options here on the main screen. Titles up top. Below that, we have anonymous access. And below that, there's a series of sign-in options. ArcGIS Online is great if you're going to be deploying this for internal use in your organization only. You can also turn on Twitter, Facebook, or Google Plus sign-ins, and all of those can be turned on or off depending on how you'd like people to access the application. At the very bottom, we have a configurable link that I have set up right now to act as help, but you could also set this up with terms of use and provide additional contact information for your organization in here, instructions, or any legalese that you're required to provide your users up front. For now, I'm going to go in as a guest anonymously. And my reason for coming to this application today is my next door neighbor's house has been abandoned, and I've noticed that there's a bird bath in the backyard that has a pool of water in it, and I have kids, and I'm concerned about that becoming a mosquito breeding location, not just for myself, but obviously for the rest of my family as well. So now I've come into the application. I can see a list of mosquito problem areas that have been identified already listed over here on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, I have a map that shows where those fall. So I can zoom in here to my house on Huffman Street. And it looks like somebody's actually already reported a problem at my neighbor's place. I'm going to click on that. And then you'll see the panel over here on the right-hand side has changed. And it looks like the problem that was reported is that the catch basin in front of their house has accumulated some debris. That's obviously a problem, potential breeding site there. So I'm really glad that somebody's reported that. I'm going to upvote that and express that I feel that that's something that needs to be cleaned up as well. But that's not the problem that I came in here to report, so I'm also going to submit a new report by clicking that big green button. I'll fill out this quick little form here. I want to report some standing water. The bird bath in the backyard. I'm going to provide my name. phone number. Skip over email. I'm not the property owner in this case. I know that there is not a dog on the property, but I do know that access to the property has not been restricted. I'm not the owner, so I'm not going to fill out permission in this case. The date I'm going to leave is today because I confirmed this morning that that is indeed still a problem. And if I wanted to, I could actually go lean over the fence in the backyard if I was filling this out on my phone, click browse, and it would allow me to take a photo of the problem right from my phone. In this case, I'm going to drop a point. I could draw it on either of these maps in desktop view. Drop a point on the backyard where that bird bath is and click report it. And just like that, I've let my city's mosquito control agency know that there is a problem going on at this property. Now there's actually 2 problems that have been reported there, and I do hope somebody will come and take a look at that soon. So let's talk a little bit about this crowdsourced reporter application before we continue. What this application is doing is it's reading a web map that's been published in ArcGIS Online that has a layer in it. And all of the information that's displayed in here is being fed from the pop-up configuration in that web map. Here what we're seeing is actually a list of the pop-up titles. When I click on one of these reports, this is the pop-up information that's displaying. And when I come down here to submit a report, this form is also being fed off of that pop-up configuration. So perhaps you have additional fields you would like your users to fill out, or some of these fields aren't relevant in your community. You can always just easily configure what information you would like to collect and display to your users by editing the pop-up in the web map that you create as part of the process of standing up this application. So I'm going to switch hats a little bit. This is very much the public-facing side of things. This is where all of this data is going to be coming in, all of this information is going to be coming in. How do you handle that inside your mosquito control department? Well, we have an app for that. Over here, I've switched tabs in my browser and switched hats, and now we're looking at a crowdsourced manager configuration that we're calling Mosquito Service Request Management. Up at the top is a table that lists all of the mosquito breeding site, catch basin reports, standing water. All of those reports are coming in here, and I can filter them. You can imagine if there were more than 4, it would be very helpful. I'm going to filter these to just look at the standing water reports by clicking the filter. And you can apply cumulative filters if I just wanted to see standing water requests that had a status of submitted. I could continue filtering this down to work with just the records that were of interest to me today. So here's this report that I submitted just a minute ago through Mosquito Service Request. I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice down here at the bottom of the screen, I now have more of a report style view of the information, and I can also see the location of that report over here on the map. Not only can I view all of this information in this application, if I click this pencil, I can also edit some of the attributes. You'll notice the attributes that I have here that are editable are things like the status and if somebody has been contacted about this. They're different than the attributes that I filled out in Mosquito Service Request when I was providing my name and information about the property. This is just simply a different pop-up configuration in a different map that is feeding the same underlying layer, or that is being read from that same underlying layer. So it's the same information. So in here I can update this to say that this report has been received. I'm going to assign it to District 1. There's nothing explicit or sensitive about this information, so I'm going to leave it as publicly visible. If this was a report that I would like to hide from the public, I could change this to no. And the filter that existed on my Mosquito Service Request application would keep that from being publicly visible anymore. Even though I haven't deleted that record, I still have it in my data set. We haven't resolved this issue yet, so I'm not going to fill out the resolution or any of this other information. This could also be accessed, for example, from a collector configuration in the field, or perhaps it would come back on a paper report where somebody in the office like me could come in and fill out what species were found, if an educational packet was left, and if any treatment was performed or is recommended. So I'm going to save those changes and just remove this filter so we can see the whole record again. So that's the Mosquito Service Request Management application. The next steps from this, as Chris is going to discuss, are there's really two paths that mosquito control agencies can take. One of those would be to immediately send somebody out in the field to address this. Another option would be to send somebody out to assess the problem and then do, as he mentioned earlier, a more widespread mosquito control options such as neighborhood-wide spreading or spraying from a truck or an aircraft. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Heather for some questions and then Chris for some more presentation.
There is a few questions. One is from Andy in the chat window. He's just asking, can they be deployed on a portal for ArcGIS?
So both Reporter and Manager, the two applications I just demonstrated, are shipped as part of both Portal and ArcGIS Online. Portal, I believe they started being included around 10.4. They may have been there at 10.3.1. I know they were there at 10.4. Chris, I'll leave you to speak to the others.
Yeah, so some of the widgets that I'm going to be showing just came out in the last release of ArcGIS Online, so they're not available in 10.4.1 portal yet, but they're planned to be there in 10.5. But also with Web App Builder, you can get the developer edition and stand up the web applications with the latest widgets on premise in that way. So there's a couple paths. At 10.5 portal, you should be able to use all the widgets that we're showing today, or using the developer edition of Web App Builder, you can deploy the widgets.
Great. Chris has a question. Any plans to integrate workforce to manage the request? He gives examples like catch basins. So to assign the worker to go and clean?
Yes. We're working on how best to stand that up now. The Citizen Problem Reporter configuration of Reporter and Manager is something I've been working on using GeoEvent and a series of Python scripts. But yes, long-term our plan is definitely to get this working with Workforce because obviously that would be the next logical step from Manager to send somebody out in the field to deal with the issues.
And I'll also add that app into the chat window if you wanted to take a look at that, Chris. So that's all the questions for now if you guys want to continue.
Great, thanks. So the next map that I want to show you is the Mosquito Field Operations map, which is a configuration of Collector for ArcGIS, and it can be used for mosquito control crews to respond to those service requests that were submitted through the Mosquito Service Request application that Allison just demonstrated. It can also be used by field crews to record routine inspections of catch basins and other standing water sources while they're out in the field. So in that example, here I have Collector for ArcGIS on my Windows desktop, but I can also use Collector on my mobile devices or tablets. I browse to the map. I'm signed in with my ArcGIS Online credentials, and I have a group that I've shared these Collector maps with, so I can open that map in the Collector map. And what that allows me to do is start to go out in the field and do some inspections on some of these problem reports. So if I zoom in here, you can see I have a couple requests here. One from that Allison walked through where she updated the status, and I can see that it's been assigned. So what I could do is I could travel out to this location, and I'm in my truck, and if I had it on my device, I would enable the geolocation. It would find my location, and I would see the request right next to me. And I could click on that request, and I can get some details about it. There's a problem with a bird bath in the backyard. And then I could start to edit or update that existing request. So let's say I contacted a person on the site. I met the owner, John Smith, and then the day that I contacted him today. Yes, there was a justified complaint. I found standing water. There weren't any mosquitoes that I found on site at that location, so I can just mark off that there wasn't any larvae or any adults found. No genus or species information that I had to populate. I did leave an educational packet, maybe as part of our service, because a big part of mosquito control's job is educating the community. I left a packet with information about how to keep your yard clean to prevent future sites for breeding mosquitoes. And then in the resolution, we can just say we emptied the bird bath and replaced with clean water. And then I can just submit that, or actually let me say the status is completed at that point. I can submit it, and now it's green and it's been taken care of. So that's a process of kind of full circle. We took the request from the beginning from the general public. It came into the manager application in the back office. The mosquito control agency assigned it to a field crew. Now as a field worker, I went out, talked with the resident, resolved the issue, and we can close out that request. And now, because I added some resolution information to that request and updated the status, the original submitter through the mosquito service request application, if they logged in with their credentials, their Twitter or Facebook account, they could go back to that application and see what was the result or how that issue was eventually resolved. So that's kind of the full circle process. The next thing I wanted to talk about is another application, mosquito adulticide planning. So this application is used by mosquito control agencies to plan adulticide spraying operations and draw them out and eventually share those with field crews so they can go out and execute the sprays. So here we have a scenario where we have a couple mosquito problem requests that have come in kind of here in the Naperville area. So what I can do is I can select the adulticide treatment areas template, and I can start to sketch out that maybe we should, since we've got a few requests, let's just go ahead and take care of this whole neighborhood. Then I can double click some information there. We're going to do a truck spray. I could add some district information if it's going to a particular district in the area or a particular truck. I can enter the date when we plan to spray. So let's try to do this next Tuesday. I can specify the type of adulticide that we're going to use. And then I can add some comments that I might want to share with the general public to give them some information. So Naperville. I can save that. So now I've recorded that planned spray area, and I could create a map for my field crews and share it with them so they know what areas to go to and what areas to drive around while they're spraying. Let's say that we've completed a spray, and so if we take this same spray location, select it, it's next week and we've completed it. We actually did it on the same day that we planned to do it. We can update the actual spray date, save that, and now it's been filtered out of the map because we've applied a filter, but that information is there available historically. So I can always look back at where I've sprayed. If I have stakeholders in the organization who want to know what types of spraying we've been doing around the community, I could quickly bring that information up and I could share that with them. I can also use this to communicate to the community what types of spraying operations we're doing around them. So residents in the community can go back and look at where spraying has occurred around their home or their business. This application can also be used to manage exemption areas. So these are areas that are prohibited from being sprayed, and ultimately we're going to avoid those when we're doing any of the adulticide spraying. So I have a couple parks here that we've identified as a community that we don't want to spray around. We have potentially there's bees that we want to protect or butterflies in those areas and we don't want to spray and kill them. I can also use the treatment exemption area template here to begin to draw another area that, let's say we want to protect this country club. not spray around it. I could enter some information, the reason for exemption, it's a natural area, and any comments that I want to associate with that. Save that as an area to avoid in the future. So that's mosquito adulticide spraying. The next application that I want to show is mosquito spray areas. So mosquito spray areas is a configuration of Web App Builder and can be used by the general public to locate recent and planned adulticide spraying areas near their home or business. So this application allows residents in the community to discover planned spray areas near their home prior to reporting a problem with mosquitoes, for example, through that mosquito service request application. And as a result, this could deflect new service requests. So it could limit the amount of new requests that are coming in if we provide this self-service application that allows residents in the community to go out and find this information for themselves. This application could also be used by residents who have sensitivities to adulticide spray and just like to be aware when spraying is going to be occurring around their home. So in the map here, I can click anywhere and I could get some information, or I'd like to search for my address. So I'm going to search for my home, South River Road, Naperville. So it finds that location, and it's gone out and found that there's one planned spray area, upcoming spray area around my home. When I go that, I can see that on September 1st, they're planning to do a truck spray, and that's the physical area that they're going to be spraying around. So if I was having problems with mosquitoes, I could look at the date and say, well, maybe I can wait until September 1st. I don't need to submit the problem. Or if I live in this community and I have sensitivities to the spray, I might want to avoid going outside or protect myself at those times when the spraying is occurring. The next application that I want to show is the mosquito spray exclusions application, which is a configuration of the GeoForm application template, and it can be used by property owners to request an exclusion from adulticide spraying near their home or business. So an exclusion may be requested by a property owner due to a medical concern, sensitivities, or allergies. It could be due to organic farming at the location, or because they're raising bees or butterflies and want to protect want to protect it from the adulticide spray. So the way the application, we kind of position the application is it's a way for mosquito control to allow residents to voice their concerns about being sprayed, and they can evaluate each of these requests that come in, and depending on the organization and how they handle spray exclusions, they can make some decisions about whether they incorporate these requests into the authoritative list or exclusions, or those authoritative exclusion zones that ultimately influence the spray planning. So there's a couple ways you can position this application, but think of it as that way as a way to request it. And we're looking into other ways to position this application in the future as potentially a way to request a notification when there's going to be spraying around you. So that could be another way this application could be positioned in the future. But the way the application works is I enter some information about myself, my address, 750 South River Road, the type of residence, my number, I have medical concerns with it, any other comments that I might want to enter. I can also then go ahead and search for my address. I want to add that to the map. Finds that location, it says it's going to submit the exclusion there, and I can request the exclusion. So that's going to add a new point to my feature service that is behind this. I've submitted my request. I can come down to the map and see that I've requested a spray exclusion, and this might start a dialogue with mosquito control about my concerns with being sprayed or being near where spraying is occurring. The final map that I want to show is another collector map. So I'm going to go back in collector, look at my maps. I'm going to go into mosquito larvicide reporting map. So mosquito larvicide reporting is a configuration of collector for ArcGIS, and it can be used by biologists and field inspectors to test larviciding sites and record any treatments applied at those sites. So these inspections provide a history of larviciding in the community that can be reported to stakeholders or the general public. So typically in mosquito control organizations, they have particular sites where there are often a lot of larvae. And they'll go out to those sites and they'll do tests. They'll do dip tests, for example. And with each dip test, they'll validate whether larvae was found. And depending on the amount of larvae found and how often they're able to find it with the number of dip tests, they'll make a decision of whether they're going to apply a larvicide at that location. So what I can do in Collector now is once I have my larvicide sites, I can go out in the field on my mobile device, drive out to the site, and once I'm there, I can click on that item. I can add a new larvicide inspection, the date at which I went out, the number of dips that I performed, whether larva was found, and whether I applied any treatment and what type of treatment I applied. When I submit that, that's adding another record to my related table for each larvicide site. I have a related table of inspections. Now I can view and see that particular request that was submitted. So over time, as I go out weekly or biweekly to these sites and perform tests and apply larviciding, I'm creating a history of the larviciding efforts that I've made, and that information might at some point be presented to stakeholders or the community regarding the efforts that mosquito control is taking to control the larvae in the community. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Heather to answer any other questions that have come up since the last break.
There's actually no questions, so if you want to continue on.
Yeah, I'm going to hand it off to Allison now.
Okay.
So Chris just talked about monitoring the larval populations of mosquitoes, but we also do a lot of monitoring for the adult mosquitoes by setting out a variety of mosquito traps in the community. Mosquitoes are drawn to carbon dioxide, so by using dry ice, we can lure mosquitoes in and then blow them into traps with fans. It's kind of a, I'm not sure if I would call it fun or interesting. It's definitely a cool way of trapping them. So we can see up here at the Naperville Country Club, there is a mosquito trap that's been set up here. I could choose it off the list in this mosquito population surveillance application, but I'm just going to click on it on the map. And over here on the side, we have a bunch of details about mosquito trapping that has gone on at this location. So this mosquito population surveillance application is a configuration of crowdsourced polling. It doesn't allow me to create new features like the crowdsourced reporter application we were looking at earlier, but it does allow me to add related records to this record, this trap site in this case. So I've gone out to this trap today and I have identified all of the adult mosquitoes that were caught in it. These are the species that we're currently monitoring because of their connections to vector-borne diseases. And I'm going to put in some totals here of the different counts that we found in this trap today. Found 120 of those. And we didn't actually find any of these other species today, so I'm just going to skip over those and submit this report. And you'll see that it's added in a new record here. Now, monitoring the fluctuations in mosquito populations in this sort of a format, it's very difficult to visualize. So now I'm going to switch over and look at the Mosquito Surveillance Charts application. This is a configuration of Web App Builder using the Related Table Charts widget. I'm going to click on the same trap location we were just looking at, and you'll see this is a much easier, much more visual representation of that same information we were just looking at. We now have the common names of each of the mosquito species. And if I click on one of them, I get a bunch more information, including the Latin name, the diseases that they're considered vectors for, and this chart that shows the fluctuation in the population of this species of mosquitoes at this location, starting back in August or starting last April and coming all the way up to August. And obviously there was a large dip in the population here between May and July of last year, which this could be a natural fluctuation due to the life cycle of these mosquitoes, or perhaps there was something going on in this area at that time that was being effective at controlling that population. And if we come and look at this other trap over here in the McDowell Grove Forest, looking at the same mosquito, you can see that there's actually a boom in the population of this species of mosquito at that location. So it seems that something was effectively controlling those inland floodwater mosquitoes over by the country club in those months. So that is ways that you can monitor and review the fluctuations in the populations of the mosquitoes, and you can use that information then to go back and tailor your treatment plans to those species. Chris?
Thanks. I think the other point I would just add to that is, like I talked about earlier, a big part of mosquito control's job is educating the community. And I think that this application is a great way to present informative information about the mosquitoes that are in that area, and also provide some education about the concerns with those mosquitoes, such as what types of diseases they're known to carry, as well as when they're most active, when do they like to bite, how do you best protect yourselves from them. So that's all information that you could provide in addition to the chart as a way to inform the community about the mosquitoes in that area and how they can best protect themselves.
Great point.
It looks, yep. So it looks like, Heather, we haven't gotten any more questions, correct?
No, we have not.
Okay. I'm going to jump into the next apps.
Oh, actually, Chris has a question. Can the charts be styled more?
Yes, you can do a little bit of styling with the colors of the bars and things like that. So there's a little bit of styling options that are available in the widget, the configuration of the widget.
Okay. There's a couple more people that are typing. We'll give them a couple seconds to see if they want to ask a question. Does ArcGIS Online support standalone tables?
In a feature service, yes, you can a standalone table without geometry. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then
so that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing in the table charts widget. We have a feature service that has a layer, that's the surveillance site, and has a related standalone table with the counts per mosquito over time.
Did you have something to add, Allison?
Nope, Chris just said it better than I would have.
Okay, just checking. There's another question. Is the mosquito surveillance chart app a configuration of crowdsource app or what?
So the surveillance app where Allison was entering the counts for mosquito was crowdsourced polling was the application, a configurable web application template in ArcGIS Online. The mosquito surveillance charts application is a web app builder application using the related table charts widget that's also in ArcGIS Online.
Okay. Joseph asked, can you export the data into point data? Can you answer that, or do you need more information?
You can, I guess in terms of that data, if we're talking specifically about the mosquito population surveillance, you can take a feature service and you can download it for example, as a file geodatabase. And so then you would have the point features and you would have the relate and the table. So it would be a local representation of that feature service. I guess, does that answer that question?
Kind of. Yeah. If you want to be more specific about your question, feel free to add more information, Joseph. Fernando had a question. Will there be a widget to detect trends or patterns?
That's an interesting question. You know, I think it's something we've talked about and thrown around as a way to, you know, do a little bit more analysis as part of the information that's coming in. So I don't know if there's specifically a widget that would do that, but maybe there's a geoprocessing tool that can be published as a service that can take those inputs and start to produce some more information, some analytical information about the numbers that are coming in. So that's definitely something that we've talked about. We don't have any immediate plans to do it, but I think that geoprocessing would be a nice vehicle for that type of analysis.
Okay. He said thank you. And there's one last question. David asked, have you looked into exporting data to aerial spraying contractors?
Oh, so yeah, we actually had those conversations when we were on site, I believe in Broward County and Palm Beach County, where what we found is it kind of differed from organization to organization, the types of software that they would have on the planes or the trucks, and what types of inputs they needed for those. So we didn't really try to tackle that yet, but I think it would be interesting to look into the different providers that are out there for software on those vehicles. Some are more sophisticated than others. For example, in Palm Beach, they had trucks that would actually give them back data while they were spraying of the lat long where they were, what direction they were spraying, and how much adulticide they were spraying at any given moment. So that could actually, they were able to get that out into a shapefile so they could bring that back into the GIS. So it would be, I think it would be dependent on what types of software different organizations were using or contractors were using who were doing the spraying as to whether we could try to integrate or translate what you digitize in the Adulticide Planning app to something that a plane can use while it's flying.
Okay. There's another kind of general question. In the future, is it possible that when our collector for Windows will work with Windows 7 instead of just Windows 10? I'm not sure if you can answer that question or not, Chris.
Yeah, I can't say for sure whether the collector team is planning on releasing for an older version of Windows.
Okay. Jason also has a question. Does it integrate with Esri Field Seeker? I'm not really sure what he means by that. Have you heard of that at all?
I haven't heard of
GIS
Field
for
Seeker.
vector. Yeah, it's a GIS Seeker for mosquito control.
No, I haven't heard of that. I'll have to look into that one.
Okay. And that's it for right now.
Okay, great. So next I want to talk about the last component, tracking vector-borne diseases. So Mosquito Health Concerns is a configuration of Web App Builder using Smart Editor widget that can be used by mosquito control and public health staff to track locations where mosquitoes, sentinel chickens, birds, or humans have tested positive for a vector-borne disease. So for example, mosquitoes that were trapped at those surveillance sites, oftentimes a subset or some of the mosquitoes of particular species are sent off to a lab to be tested to see if they're carrying a vector-borne disease. Positive results can be recorded using this application. So let's say at a surveillance site we captured some mosquitoes and we sent them off to the lab and they came back positive for the West Nile virus. What we can do is selecting the West Nile virus template. I can come over to my surveillance site and I'm going to snap on that point and I can say that there was a mosquito. It was found today. And we can say mosquito found at site, tested positive for, and save that. So now I've captured that information, an instance where we found West Nile in an active mosquito. Another way this application can be used is by health departments to share with mosquito control agencies general location so that personal health information is protected, general locations where a vector-borne disease has been transmitted to a human. So what we found in our conversations is oftentimes the health department would contact mosquito control and give them a general area of where a person lived who they found had tested positive for a vector-borne disease. And this was to protect the privacy of the individual rather than giving out the specific address. And mosquito control, they want this information as a way to influence where they're spraying and have a better understanding of it. So what we did for this was we used a polygon layer instead of a point because we're not going to get a specific location of where the person lives. But we might get a general description of where their home is. Maybe it's a couple blocks. So based on the information that we get back from the health department, or we could provide this app, we could share this app internally with our health department or the health department and allow them to come in and draw the area and provide some of the information. So there's a couple different ways we could use this application. So let's say we found West Nile, it was reported on, and any comments. So found around 2nd Street near Main Street, something like that, pretty general. Then we can save that and we have that information. So this is just purely tracking this information. So we have it and we can ultimately use these inputs back into our adulticide planning application as potential areas that we might want to spray around to limit the spread of those vector-borne diseases. And then a companion app that goes along with mosquito health concerns is the Health Concerns Summary application. So this is a configuration of Web App Builder, and it's using the Info Summary widget. And this is used by mosquito control to share locations of these vector-borne diseases to stakeholders or potentially the public. So what's nice about this widget on the right is it gives you a quick summary of the different layers and the counts of the number of times a vector-borne disease was found in the current extent. So as I zoom in on this map, the info summary is going to update to only show me the features that are within that extent. And then I can also expand this and see them further grouped by the disease. And if I'm interested in a particular one, I can click on it and get a nice pop-up. So this is just a nice way to kind of provide a quick overview of the types of diseases that have been found and provide it in a nice way that can be shared internally to stakeholders or potentially shared with the general public to give them a better sense of what areas potentially to avoid or be aware of and protect themselves against exposure to mosquitoes. So come back here. So today we've demonstrated the Managed Mosquito Population Solution, which again is a comprehensive offering of maps and apps that work together to help mosquito control agencies respond to problems reported by the community, manage adulticide and larviciding treatments, conduct mosquito surveillance, and track the spread of vector-borne diseases. You can learn more about this solution by visiting solutions.rts.com and searching for Manage Mosquito Populations. So let me take you out to the website and show you how to do that. So here I'm at solutions.rts.com. I can search for Manage Mosquito Populations, and it's already in my search because I just love going to this location. And then the first result comes back for the Manage Mosquito Population solution, and here are the collection of maps and apps that we talked today. So how you can engage citizens, conducting the field operations. What's nice about coming here is many of the applications have a Try It Now link. So under Suppressed Adult Mosquitoes, which is the mosquito adulticide planning application, I can open the Try It Now link, and that takes me to the same application that we showed you today. So you can start playing around with it, drawing in new features. You can see that exclusion zone that I requested there is now in the map. So you can start playing around and doing exactly what we demonstrated today to get a sense of what the application can do. You can also go in to learn more, where you'll get a brief overview of the application, what you need to get started, and then you can go to the Getting Started link that will walk you through the steps of standing up the applications. Because these are all really configurations of ArcGIS Online, they follow a very similar pattern. Your first step is going to be publish a service. You're going to create a web map using that service and set up some filters and some symbology, configure the pop-up, things like that. And then you're going to configure the application, go using Web App Builder or the configurable application templates. And then you can set up your sharing, share it within your organization, share it with everyone to make it available to the general public. But very similar pattern that you're going to go through with all of these applications. So while we've designed the mosquito control solutions to require only an ArcGIS Online organizational account, and they can be configured without any custom code, there is help available if you would like assistance standing up any of these maps or apps that we've shown today. You could reach out to your Esri account rep and discuss Esri professional service offerings. I would also encourage you to consider engaging one of our partners, GIS Inc., for example, who have been actively working with New Orleans and others to deploy mosquito control maps and apps in their organization. So they're a great resource as well to consider if you'd like to augment or get some assistance standing up some of these maps and apps. And finally, these, as with all of our solutions, are fully supported by Esri. So you can contact Esri Support Services if you run into any issues while deploying any of these maps and apps. So they're there to answer your questions, help you overcome any issues that you might encounter while you're standing up these maps and apps. So with that, I'm going to open it up one more time for questions.
No, there's actually no questions right now. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah. Sharon asked if you could go back to one slide. Sharon, can you be more specific, please?
Yeah, let me just do that. So is it this summary slide?
She has not responded. Yes. Yeah, the summary slide.
Yep. Solutions.arcgis.com. And you can search for managed mosquito populations. You could actually just search for mosquito and you'll get a lot of apps. Most of the apps today that reference mosquito are the only ones that are going to be returned on the website.
Marilee had a question. What is the widget that is used in the Mosquito Health app, or Mosquito Health Concerns app?
Yeah, so in this, let me bring it up. In this first app where we're tracking and we're creating the features, we're using the Smart Editor widget, which is new in the June release of ArcGIS Online. It's similar to the Edit widget that was there before, but it offers some enhanced features that I preferred, so I went with that widget. The The summary application is using the info summary widget. That also was enhanced a little bit. It's a fairly new widget, but it was enhanced in the June release to offer some additional functionality.
There's another question. So the full suite of maps and apps will only be compatible with 10.5.
No, I wouldn't say that. So what I would say is if you want to deploy all the apps via portal on premise and you want the portal to host the apps, then yes, many of the widgets that we showed today, like the Smart Editor widget, are not available until 10.5 portal. But if you're going to be deploying these to ArcGIS Online, you're not really tied to any version of desktop. You can actually deploy all of these applications without even having desktop installed on the machine. So you can just use ArcGIS Online and stand up all of the maps and apps. So there's no tie to any version of any 10 version. If you're using Portal, then some of the configurable app templates will work at 10.4 and 10.4.1. Some of the widgets aren't available, like I said, till 10.5, but you can use the developer edition of Web App Builder to stand up the web applications using the latest version of the widgets locally if you want to.
Perfect. I think that is it, so I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for joining us for today's meetup. We look forward to seeing and hearing from you at our next meetup, which is on Thursday, October 6th, which will be providing an overview of a new application called Adopta. Until then, have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.